This video is about personal play as a reward event. And this is the thing, almost nobody discusses this in the capacity that I think they should. Denise Fenzi is one of the only people that I've ever heard really talk about it in a focal point, like to say this is a reward event. It's not just fucking around with your dog. This is like actually a reward event. In one of her books about play skills, she talks about the idea that if your dog works for a tug, if your dog works for food, then when they're in the ring, or for me in an emergency, in a tactical situation, the question then comes down to, have you done the work necessary to convince them that reward is possible, either by training or trickery, that they believe they can get the reward and so they're willing to work for the reward. But if you use personal play as a reward event, you are never without your reward. You're never without a reward event that you can give to your dog. So that's one of the powers of personal play that I think a lot of people just don't understand. Yeah, look, if you give your dog a piece of kibble as a reward or a piece of boiled chicken as a reward, those are both food rewards, but they're different levels of value, right? Your dog may value a tug-based reward more than personal play as a reward, but you are never without reward. You can always give your dog a practiced, understood reward event, always. It may or may not be as high value as some of the other ones, but then that speaks to the nature of variable reward. Your marker announces that a reward opportunity is on the table. What it is, whether it's personal play, food, or toys, can be variable. But you never don't reward your dog. You are never absent the ability to reward. You're never in a situation where you don't have your reward event that you can give your dog. You always have a practiced, understood reward event. And so that's one of the major values of personal play, I think, right? So the other thing is, a lot of dogs, one of the main things that they get in trouble for is interacting in a way that is inappropriate. They go into too much drive, they jump up, they put their feet, their mouth, they whatever, they nip, and they're absolutely 100% just playing. But we don't have a handle on that play. And because of that, we get into a whole bunch of suppression stuff. We tell them that you're not allowed to jump up. We either make them go do something else. We redirect them onto another activity, food or toys, which is fine, but then we run into that thing of not having our reward event on our person because we don't have the object of reward. Or we just tell them you're not allowed to do it. You have to sit if you want to get attention, and they never actually get the interaction that they want to have with us, which I think is a shame. Or worse, we try to say no and we squash it out of them. We say, you're not allowed to interact like that. And then that's a bummer, because I think you wind up with a dog that has a less enjoyable life because they don't get to interact. Like, what kid doesn't want to play and wrestle around with their buddy? Like, what dog doesn't want to play and wrestle around with their person? Problem is a couple things. Problem is not having it on cue. So when the dog goes, is it now? Is the game on now? Then they pester you, because there's no contextual cue to the game of personal play. Like with a toy, you can teach a dog, when I take out your Frisbee, we're doing the thing. Or when whatever, you know what I mean? When I break out the flirt pole, we're doing the thing. Or when I have my treat pouch on, when you see my clicker dangling off my hand, whatever the contextual cues are, the dog can learn, oh, that means the game is available. The problem is when the game is just strictly with you, there's no signal that the game is or is not available unless you develop one. And without developing that signal, then you run into the thing of the dog going, how about now? How about now? How about now? And it really is irritating. And then people go, this is no good. It's not worth it, right? The problem isn't with the style of play. The problem is there's no clear indicator as to the window of opportunity for the style of play. So in everything we do, it's, are you ready? Says the opportunity's on the table. Then you present them with the game, right? So it's, are you ready? And then at the end of the game, enough. Everything happens in the window of opportunity. Everything, everything, everything. If you understand that, personal play doesn't become any more annoying than any other kind of play, because instead of the dog trying to figure out when it's appropriate, you tell them when it's appropriate. No harm, no foul. Everything's good. The thing is, it takes a little bit more thinking on your part as to understanding the game, because there's a difference between a game and activities. And activity is just stupid fun. But a game has goals and clear objectives and penalties and things like that, right? So like when you're trying to get the tug toy, you know the goal is get the toy. Don't grab my shirt, but grab the toy. So there's a goal, get the toy, but there's a penalty, like there's a boundary, don't grab my shirt. Grab the toy, yes. Grab the shirt, no. Right? So there's a game involved with it. You can tell when you're winning and losing. There's an objective. It's a game, and games provide way more motivation, far and away more motivation than an activity. It's like look at the video game thing online. People that play, there's like that intro thing where there's not actually a game. You can shoot, you can jump, you can run, but there's no like game, like the training level. No one has fun in that. Everybody gets bored with that super, super quick. That's an activity. Then the game is like, okay, now here's the objective, here's the penalties, you have this many lives, things like that. So there's a massive motivational difference between an activity and a game. To put personal play as a game and not just some activity, to get the real power of it, you have to have a goal. And that goal is not readily apparent because of the object. With the toy, it's very apparent. You get the toy. With food, it's very apparent. You get the food. Whether that's luring or shaping, you're trying to get the food, With weight pull, it's very obvious. Get the weight over here. Get to me. With spring pull, it's pretty obvious. You grab that. Wall climb, it's very obvious. Mill, it's very obvious. All these games are super, super obvious as to what the objective is. But personal play, it's not very clear. And that's because it is extremely versatile. You can play tag. I touch you and then I run away and then you run away from me. You can play fight. Like they can actually try to mouth you and you can try to grab them and wrestle around with them. Some dogs find that super fun. You can do this stalking game where you like make the claw hand and then touch them and then make the claw hand. Like dogs find that immensely rewarding. My mother-in-law has this weird game worked out where she drapes her hands like this and the dogs walk through her hands like they're going through a car wash. It doesn't matter. It's on cue. They find it highly rewarding. It's worked out between them. There's a goal. Like that's, if they jump up, they get in trouble. Like that's the goal. There's goals, there's penalties. It's on cue. It's amazing. It's perfect. We play very differently than they play with the mother-in-law. Totally fine. No problem. But the idea is work out what your goal and penalty is. If somebody says, can they bite you? Dude, I don't know. It's totally up to you. If you allow it in the game, like an interaction between two people can be MMA sparring, or it could be, playing the mirror game where I try to move and you try to mirror me. It could be Simon Says. It could be tag. You know what I mean? Just because two people are interacting, what are the rules? Well, it's up to you guys. So work out whatever game you are comfortable with your dog. What does your dog find extremely rewarding? What do you find extremely rewarding? You guys work that out. And you once you have that in your head, you know what the objective is, you know what the penalties are. Now you have a very clear game that you can play with your dog and you can get massive motivation and you always have a reward event in your back pocket. You are never without the ability to reward your dog. The most important thing is putting it on the window of opportunity. So I have, are you ready? Play, 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 play. Enough ends the game. That window of opportunity is massively important for this, almost more than anything else, because there's no other giveaway clue saying it's on the table or off the table. That said, there are some dogs for whom interacting in this way is not safe from the beginning. There's most dogs, 99.9% of the dogs I can start to play with, right? And I can teach them, are you ready, and enough, no problem. Pretty quickly, just like any other game, I want to get to interruptions. With a toy, it's play, 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 out, and they come off. With food, it's play, 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 leave it, and they come off. With personal play, it's easy because I'm not trying to stop the interaction. Stopping the interaction would be enough. I'm trying to continue the interaction, but I need for it to downshift. So continuing the interaction but downshift is easy. So it would be play, 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 play. Easy as an interruption, then play, 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 play. Then when we're done playing entirely, enough, right? So you build the game, are you ready, and enough on the ends of the window. And then once this game is nicely established and very drivey, we start putting interruptions into it. Interruption and personal play is easy. For some dogs, starting in that kind of drive is tricky. With a toy, if a dog gets over aroused and puts too much energy into the toy, you can go, hey, that's not okay, but they put it into the toy, it didn't hurt you. If you have food in your hand and they put a little too much excitement into the food in your hand, they're chewing the shit out of the food, but and you can go way easy, but they're not hurting you. If a dog slams into a down twice as fast as they should, or knocks over the place board because they don't understand what you're trying to shape, their energy spiked, but it didn't hurt you. And you can be more tolerant of the spikes of inappropriate energy as you teach them how to level off their energy during a play. But the problem is with personal play, if a dog spikes into a higher level of energy and what they're doing is they're mouthing and they mouth too hard, they can actually hurt you. And that's, for most people, they don't want to tolerate that. If you have a dog that is high enough arousal and you are a soft enough handler that you are not going to be able to start in the way that is typical, which is, are you ready, begin play, and then put enough on it and then teach interruptions. If you're a soft enough handler compared to the intensity of which your dog is going to try to play, that doesn't sound like a good idea, then in this game I can begin with the interruption. I can begin with easy, which everybody that works with any of my shit should already understand. We begin that with standing on the leash. We begin it with capturing easy as it naturally occurs in the wild, right? Like we're around the house in front of the fireplace. Anytime you see it, you can name it. Stand on the leash to create the opportunity to capture it. We start talking about rub downs once they're comfortable with being, tacked with the leash. We can start doing rub downs, that conditioned relaxation, that massage. You can start with the decelerate and then add the toggle of arousal in. You can't do that with a toy. You can't start with the out. You can't do that with food. You can't start with the leave it. You have to build the movement forward and then practice putting on the brakes. But with personal play, because of its nature, you can, if you need to. I usually don't. I usually just start right away with play because I work on the easy separately, I work on the play, and then they meld, they meet in the middle. But on some dogs, it's unsafe to do that. So on some dogs, I will start with easy. I'll get easy, nice and reliable. I can go easy and the dog decelerates and I'm nice and work on him like this, no problem. And then I'll start to go, are you ready? They don't, you know what I mean? They know that word means something. And I go, yes. And I'll play a little bit, I mean, if you're talking like an engine revving, you push the gas pedal enough to get it to move the needle, but not brow. Because again, the problem is with a really gnarly dog, if they go that far, it's going to be hard to control it. So you just like that, right? So you work on what some people will call the toggle, the ability to come out of easy and into aroused and then find it again, aroused and then find it again. But you can, if you need to, start at a baseline of easy and practice seeing how far out of it can you bring them and still get them back until eventually you can get them super wound and find all the way back. And then you start drawing out the wound up periods into longer and longer with shorter and shorter interruptions of the arousal period. And then eventually you get this back chain turns into the exact same game. Are you ready? Play, 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 play. Easy as interruption. And then play, 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 and then enough ends the game. Once you have that, regardless of whether you started in drive and taught the interruptions or started with easy and taught the arousal toggle, doesn't matter, you end up in the same place. Once you're there, you do it just like any other game. Like at that point, it's any other game. It's like treat chase game, treat pouch fight, toys, you know what I mean? Like any game that you have the ability to open and close the window, you have the ability to interrupt and restart the game. Then you can teach the dog to do work and leverage that work against turning on the game. So if I can say sit down, stand, yes, with a toy, sit down, stand, yes, with food, sit down, stand, yes, with my treat pouch, sit down, stand, yes, with the treadmill run, sit down, stand, yes, with my wrestling match, right? So if I can open the window and interrupt the game and get that on control, whether I started at arousal and worked my way to easy or started easy and worked my way to arousal, once I have the basic formation of a game, then I can use that game as a reward event and leverage it for work. And the power on that cannot be underemphasized because you are never without a high-powered reward event. Maybe not as high-powered as a toy, maybe not as high-powered as food, but it's not nothing. And you will always have it, so you can always reward. And if you go into an emergency, a tactical situation, or a competitive situation, it's as if you had their second favorite toy in your back pocket or their second favorite treat in your back pocket. Like imagine the power of having that all the time. That's the value of personal play.
Shush, Nick.